Today we are driving the 2024 Porsche Taycan rear-wheel drive. So how does this $112,000 electric sedan drive on the road? Let's go ahead and find out. As always, let me give you a brief tour of the car before we get it out on the road. You get a functional vent here under the LED headlights and another functional vent down below here. There's a Porsche crest on your hood, and when you push this button on the key fob, that is going to release the front trunk. When you open up the front trunk using the latch underneath the hood, you're going to find 3 cubic feet of space, which is pretty typical for a sedan this size. It is felt lined and everything will stay nicely insulated, so your chicken will stay hot in here. Let's close it up. Moving around to the side, you're going to find these optional 20-inch alloy wheels. They really look good on this car. You get a charge port on each side, fully loaded mirrors, and these door handles will deploy and flush when you lock and unlock the doors. You get frameless windows and an option to have soft closing, but this one doesn't have it today. The wheels at the back are going to be the same as the front, because this is just a rear-wheel drive, not a Turbo GT. Stepping back to look at the side profile, you'll see that the Taycan has a very nice slope to the roof, but that will compromise the rear headroom. Taking a look around the back, I really like the way this Taycan looks from this angle. You have a light bar that goes all the way across with Porsche and Taycan branding, and to open up the trunk, you're just going to push this button right here. There's about 14 cubic feet of space back here, which is not amazing, but it's still enough for most people. But you get a lot of cubbies. You get cubbies on both sides and a ton of underfloor storage. Of course, a power trunk is going to come standard on a car that's this expensive. But now let's take a look at that interior and see how much luxury and technology you get. The rear seats aren't what I would call fancy. The door panel doesn't really have impressive materials, and these seats are just okay. They're made of perforated leather, but you have to pay for rear seat heating, and there is no rear seat ventilation. Getting inside is kind of hard because the roof slopes so aggressively, and the headroom back here is just okay. You also have to pay for this middle seat, and you have to pay for a third zone of climate control. While it isn't a bad place to spend time, I feel like they could have added more headroom and made more of these amenities like heated seats standard. But let's check out the front next and see if they made any improvements up here. Closing up the door, you'll find a very solid sounding thunk even with the frameless windows. And opening up this door, you'll see that you have 3-person memory seats on the front seats, and these seats will be made of real leather with 14 ways of power adjusting. Close up the door to start up the car. You will get a head-up display as standard equipment, which I think is pretty fitting for a car that is this price. In the center here, you'll have this screen to control your climate controls and a bunch of other things, and you'll have storage behind that. There are 2 cup holders and a little bit more storage in the center console, but the armrest doesn't stay up on its own. There is also a wireless phone charger in there. But let's take a deeper dive into the screen. You get controls for your heated and ventilated seats, your fan speeds, your temperatures, your defrost, and you can also open and close the trunks and the charge port doors. As you can see, Porsche went crazy with the screens. You get this main screen right here with wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is very welcome on a modern day EV. You can take phone calls, you can listen to music, you can navigate to certain places, and there is also a passenger screen for about $1,490. As you can see here, that is where you would control your front and your trunk, and the center screen there has haptic feedback. There is a glass roof up top, which is also an option. And putting the car in reverse, you'll see that you have many different angles for your backup camera. But I am ready to take this Porsche Taycan out on the road, so let's do just that. It feels great to feature this 2024 Porsche Taycan rear-wheel drive on the channel. This is a really cool car, and a lot of people are curious about this, so I think it's a good chance for me to review this. What you just saw was an acceleration clip, and if you missed it, feel free to skip back a little bit. This rear-wheel drive model, which is technically the slowest Taycan you could get, does 0 to 60 in 4.5 seconds, and I think that is pretty impressive. The base Tesla Model S, of course, does it in 3.1 because that's just something that Tesla does, but still, 4.5 is really good. But what is getting this Taycan up to speed? That would be a single electric motor paired to a 93.4 kilowatt-hour battery pack, making 402 horsepower and 263 pound-feet of torque. If you want a little bit more power, you can upgrade that to 469 if you get the performance pack, but that is over $5,000. All of that is mated to a 2-speed automatic transmission, which is kind of surprising considering that this is an electric car. But Porsche is trying to make it different and unique from all the other electric cars out on the market. This has about 265 miles of range, and it's going to be about the same for every other Taycan. They all get around 260 miles of range depending on the powertrain, the wheel size, and a bunch of other things. Let's talk about the ride quality next because we are about to go over a very rough road surface. And the Taycan actually handles it pretty well. It's not the best considering that this is $112,000, but I think the money went somewhere else in this car. The ride quality is still pretty good, and I think it's not going to bother most people. Let's talk about what it's like to drive the Taycan. So when you get in the car, usually it's going to start up when you close the door. So no need to put your foot on the brake, but there is a power button to the left of the steering wheel in typical Porsche fashion. The steering wheel will not move until you put it into drive, so just keep that in mind. The selector is to the left of the main screen and right under the gauge cluster. You're going to push it down for drive, push it up for reverse, and push the button for park. Now, everything else is pretty simple in the Taycan. You just need to get used to everything being operated by multiple different screens. It's not like the Tesla Model S where there's just one giant screen in the middle. There are actually 3 screens in the middle in this Porsche Taycan. But there are some other things that you might need to get used to. The ride height is very low, and the Taycan itself sits very low, so you're just going to need to bend down a lot to get into this cabin. It is a Porsche after all, and Porsche also creates sports cars, so I think that is kind of where it came from in the Taycan, but just keep that in mind if you are a taller driver. That is one thing that you are going to get used to. Also, another thing is that the visibility at the back is kind of compromised. The back window is not large at all, and the headrests are kind of blocking the side windows, so that's going to make it a little bit hard to see out there. Thankfully, there is standard blind spot monitoring, and the mirrors have a pretty good angle. So just a few things that you're just going to need to get used to and learn about when you own a Porsche Taycan. Otherwise, it is pretty straightforward, and I really do enjoy this car. But let's talk about wind noise really quick before we do some more spirited driving. The wind noise in the Taycan is just like a normal car. There's nothing really special about how loud or how quiet it is because there really shouldn't be, but the money definitely went some other places in the Taycan. The wind noise is not concerningly loud, and it's also not concerningly quiet. Maybe it could have been a little bit more quiet for the price tag, but I'm not really going to complain too much about that. But let's go ahead and see what this Taycan can do up the hill. And after that, we'll see if we could do a brake test and a handling test. So here we go. So we're going to floor it up the hill. And yes, the Taycan gets up to speed pretty quickly, as you can see right there. And then let's try the brake test. Pretty good. This is the standard brake system in the Taycan, so nothing special here. The brakes are just as it came with the car, with a little bit more wear on it because this car has 8,000 miles on it. And yeah, I think that is pretty good for a Taycan. It's way better than a normal car, the standard brake system, and of course when you get the more performance-oriented models like the Turbo S, the Turbo GT, those will get carbon ceramic brakes so that you can stop faster because they're guessing that you're going to be going faster in a more performance-oriented model. Definitely nice job on this Porsche. And there's one thing that we're not going to do in this test drive, and that is donuts. This car is rear-wheel drive, and yes, it is capable of doing donuts. The other models, not as much. So if you really like your donuts and you don't care as much about the 0 to 60 time or the looks of this car, maybe this is for you. It is rear-wheel drive, and that can be fun in the snow and in an empty parking lot. But we're going to wrap up this review right here. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.